Hi guys, so here with a new video, and this video will be a Enhancement Shaman PvP guide video for 10.1. We're going to talk about stats, we're going to talk about the Tierset and how important it is to actually get the Tierset as Enhancement Shaman. We're going to talk about like the two main builds I'm playing currently, but there's a lot of variation and you can actually change a lot of points depending on your playstyle, depending on your flavor to the spec. We're going to talk about the comps and where I think Enhancement Shaman can be performing in 2s and in 3s. We're going to talk about social flow as well and how you can actually play it well, and just in general, what is an Enhancement Shaman? I'm going to start with that. What is an Enhancement Shaman? Enhancement Shaman is pretty much the hybrid class of World of Warcraft right now retail. You are good at healing, you're good at DPS, you're good at bursting, you're good at consistent damage sometimes. Your defensives are quite poor, but that is compensated with a few spells that we got from 10.1, but also just in general, the thing that we are not really losing compared to other specs. There is a lot of things going on with Enhancement Shaman, which again, is it going to get nerfed or not? I think it should not be nerfed, but a lot of people are like crying super easily to versus Enhancement Shaman because they do not understand how the spec works, or they do not really peel themselves whenever their burst is happening. So that is just how it is. But we're going to talk about stats real quickly, and then I'm going to talk on the PTR for the 10.1 tier set and how important it actually is. So stats, there are mainly two ways to play Enhancement Shaman. Either you're playing the full elemental build where you're pretty much going for full mastery or close to, and you're doing some big lava lashes, for example, some big elemental blasts, some big chain lightning or lightning bolt, depending if you have Tierset or not. You have a lot of ways to actually do insane amount of damage. Now it is a little bit less consistent in my eyes because I do like haste. I do like to have a lot of GCDs, usage, but also just in general, I feel like it's more smooth to play. And that's the playstyle I'm playing the most, which is more around Stormstrike and like nature damage pretty much. So we're building pretty much with a lot of haste. But with the tier set, you will be forced into like different stats that you really do not want, but it is what it is. We have a lot of versatility at least, and of course we want to be very mobile. And chance wise, I'll play with Flipping Devotion and Wafting Devotion. I think it will not change going into 10.1, but you can also experiment with Everything Writ, which gives you mastery whenever it pops. Could be also very interesting, but again, it's already a very RNG spec, and you are making it even more RNG because of that. So I don't know if it's really a good solution. I think the consistent damage from Sophic Devotion and the haste, again, consistently increasing your haste and your GCDs and just the GCD usage you can have during a match is, I think, the most smart thing. Again, you can also play the Lava Lash build with a lot of haste, and it will be even more smoother because you will have a lot more ticks with your Flame Shock, but also just in general, your Lava Lash usage will be a bit like faster, and you will have more GCDs to spare, and it is a very GCD heavy spec. Sometimes you will feel like you have always something to press, and sometimes you are overwhelmed because of that. That's normal. It's Enhancement Shaman. You have to work on it, and there's also like a lot of like PvP talents that are going to give you and help you with that. Now, those are pretty much the stats. Pretty much like enchants and such, I'm going to make a separate video once we are fully geared, or at least fully honor geared, where I will have enchants and such in place, and I'm going to tell you which you can go for. So be sure to subscribe to the channel if you want to have more update videos about Shaman specs like Elemental Shaman and Enhancement Shaman, or if you're interested in other specs, I do also cover a few other specs. Anyways, let's talk about the PTR 10.1. I'm going to really quickly change my scene, if I can really quickly change my scene. Boom, boom. All right, we are in 10.1. So we have the forces on the 10.1. I'm going to talk which one you should go for. Of course, the bonus is more important than the stats itself, and you will see. But if you have a choice, I would go for the helm, gives you a lot of versatility and haste. I would go for the legs, gives you haste and mastery, which both are DPS increase. I would go for the shoulders, which gives you haste and crit. Unfortunately, crit is not really that good for Enhancement Shaman, but I think the haste increase is quite nice if you're going for a haste build. And you have the choice between chests and gloves, which both are crit first, which is again very annoying. I would go for the gloves, so you have the better stats on the chest. I think chest is more important than gloves. If you have no choice, I would just take the one that you have available directly. Now, full set wise, we have one of the best, if not the best, full set in the game. We have Sundering, which is a ability that you use to CC and disrupt the enemy team, but also do some quite good damage. It does flame strike damage now, so it will again scale with physical damage increase with your Ghost Wolf, for example. Feral spirits, or it will be doing some flame damage. So it's flame strike. It's a combination of both. So your mastery has some influence to that, but also your feral spirits, if it's like the elemental one or not. Now it gives increased mastery for 15 seconds. It is actually huge. It's like 15 seconds on a 40-second CD. Pretty much like 50% of the time you will have that buff, pretty much. And it is halved in PvP. It is 12%, but it is still a huge 12% mastery. It is a lot of gear that you would have to allocate to yourself to get 12% increase. And it's not only that, it's also Sundering increases your physical damage and fire damage dealt by 20% for 15 seconds. If you're playing a Lava Lash build that I'm going to show you afterwards, it is going to double dip. So you will have 12% more damage on your Lava Lash and your Elemental Blast, and you will have 10%, because it's halved, 10% more damage on your fire damage ability or physical, Stormstrike for example. So it will double dip, so it will be 22% for Lava Lash, 22% for Elemental Blast. Unfortunately, nothing for Nature, but here we are with a great second part of the 4 set, which is your next 2 Shade Lightnings casts deal 50% increased damage, because it is halved in PvP, and refund 25% of monster and weapon stacks consumed. I made a video about it, I showed you how it works and the damage it actually does, but I'm going to do it again so you can actually see the insanity it can do. Crit or not, it will do a lot of damage. So let's right away click my buffs. I'm kind of bugged. I'm gonna go on details. I'm gonna activate details. Can we activate details, please? Thank you very much. Would be very appreciated. Let's reload. I'm going to show you once more the damage that it can provide, and then you're going to say, I might maybe do some PvE to get that tier. And even I'm actually like asking myself to do that, although PvE is not really my cup of tea. So first things first, I'm going to hit the PvP dummy. I think this one is a PvP dummy, right? I don't know. That's not a PvP dummy. I think this one is a PvP dummy. All right, so we're going to build our damage and do the Shade Lightning that it will do a lot of damage. So let's go. I'm going to hit. I'm going to Doom Winds again. I'm going to use my CDs, and then I am going to do a big Sundering. I'm going to build my damage again because I need 10 stacks. I have 7 stacks. Unfortunately, the stacks are not coming. 10 stacks, boom, Chain Lightning, 118k normal hit. And if it crits, it does a lot of damage. It is cleave. Again, I'm not bursting super hard. I don't have Topic Devotion on myself. I had no haste trinket. The haste trinket, like the primary stat trinket, popped at the end. But it does 119k normal hit. And if it crits, it's 240k on a PvE dummy. Now, you know, PvE dummy, it means that it does get more damage. You can basically give around 200k crit in a cleave situation, in a situation where we have poor gear. It is 423 eye level, so we will have around 450 with full conquest. It will be insane. The damage will be unstoppable, and you can say whatever you want. This damage is like unavoidable. You think you can avoid it, but it is not avoidable. It's really a lot of damage, and if I'm doing all the things correctly, I can have a lot of damage. Again, I'm going to do a big Sundering into a big chain lightning 2 times, and it does insane damage. Like again, here it's on my PvP dummy, 267k. I think it's bugged, like PvP crit modifiers are a bit bugged. It could be like that number, but I don't think so. Versatility is also not into account, so you could also halve it by like at least 20% should be shaved. And plus like the crit nerfs, I would say 15% less. I think it will be around like 220k, 210k. It's a chain lightning, man. It's chain lightning. It's pretty much cleave. If people are like stacked up and you're doing a chain lightning, people are going to be crazy. And that's not only the only thing that is going to matter. Your Stormstrike is going to do damage. Your Doomwinds is doing damage. Your Sundering is still doing damage. Your Froststrike is still doing damage. Your Elemental Blast is still doing damage. And if you don't have the buff from Sundering, you still have your Lightning Bolt actually doing some good damage. Like I can show you without the chain lightning, I'm going to just do Sundering to get like my buff, and then I do a chain lightning. It does like 102k. It's insane. It's insane. This is going to be, I think, too strong. I think we will get nerfed, but I hope so not, because I think a lot of specs have the same tools pretty much. But the chain lightning is really the icing on the cake. Like having the cleave option makes it really worthwhile. So I would go for the Tierset if I am you, and like I said, I would prioritize helm, shoulders, gloves and legs. If you don't have a choice, please do not skip Tierset, because you got like chest. I think the bonus is really outweighing everything, right? So we're going back on the normal game, which is where I have my builds. So we're back on the retail and my builds. Let's talk about builds. So this is my first build. It is called the physical Stormstrike build. A lot of people are now playing this. I already played this before it was cool. I already covered it before it was cool in 10.7, in 10.5, and this is the build, the cookie cutter build I always liked to play. Now, there are a bit of a variation here and there that you could go for. For example, Stormblast is not really super needed. You can also just go for Focus Insight or Refreshing Waters. There are a few things that you can actually like skip. For example, Converging Storms, if you're playing like versus casters, it's only like a 25% increased Stormstrike damage that you're going to have. You could really just remove it for Crash Lightning. I mean, there are ways where you could play without Crash Lightning. I do like to play Crash Lightning because often enough we're playing versus cleaves, but you have, I would say, choices to make. Yes, some people play with Ice Strike, some people play even with Lava Lash. In my opinion, with this build, you don't really have any time to use your skills like Lava Lash and Ice Strike, or it will be so desync that it doesn't even, it's not even worth to press. Like it's only like a 50% snare. Again, that's quite nice. Doing 100% more damage on Froststrike is also quite nice. It means that Froststrike does some good damage, especially with Hailstorm. Again, I accept that playstyle, but I do play that playstyle with my other build, which is the Mastery is King build. I'm going to go over a few points, but I already discussed it multiple times, but I want to discuss about the main strength of that build. Main strength is we have good CC because of Hex, we have good survivability because of Surging Shields, Earth Shield, which is healing for a lot, Healing Stream Totem, healing for a lot. We have Earth Elemental and Brimming with Life, giving you insane amount of health just in general in PvP. We have Spirit Walk on a 50-second CD. It's not that good, but I mean, it is what it is. You can also play Gust of Wind if you really so desire. Personally, I feel like Gust of Wind is not the best thing for me. I prefer to play with Spirit Walk in general. There is also a few variations where you can actually put some points elsewhere. For example, you could remove Thunderous Paws and remove like 1 point somewhere else. Like for example, you could remove Go with the Flow, and you can go for Elemental Warding if you're playing versus like casters. In general, I do prefer to play Astral Bulwark to get a 60% Astral Shift, because the games are still quite fast. If games are a bit slower and you do need a second wall or a third wall, I would go for Plains Traveler, because then you will have like multiple usages of Astral Shift. But I feel like if I'm targeted, often or not, if I don't astral shift right away and I need like a big damage reduction, I feel like 60% is really a deterrent for people to go for me, so it helps me in social shuffle and in threes and in twos. In twos, maybe I could play with place travel because the games are a bit longer, because you don't have a MS effect if you're playing with a healer. If you're playing with a DPS, like for example warrior, games are quite fast, so you don't really need a planes traveler. Those are like pretty much the things. Again, if you're playing versus shaman with hex and such, you can go for cleanse spirit, so you just remove this and you go for cleanse spirit and you're good to go. If you're playing versus like specific specs where you are countered because of a few things, like for example lightning lasso, you don't really need that if you're playing versus a comp where you don't really need a stun because you have your healer or your DPS, your friends that has a stun, and you don't have time to actually cast lightning lasso because they are going to kick you. Then you could just play without it and play somewhere else. I do love my lightning lasso. If in general, I feel like I'm a bit dependent on it right now because I like played it a lot season 1. Thundershock, I tried it, I didn't really like it, so I would not go for that. On the spec tree, the main thing is we have deeply rooted elements. It pops sometimes it doesn't pop. It is now a bit more streamlined, so you have, I think, a set chance of procs per game, but I do not really know how it works like in general. I didn't really do the calculations, but I prefer this instead of Ascendance. I think Ascendance, a 3-minute CD for like a 15 seconds usage of a great CD is too long. I think if it was a 2-minute CD, I would think about it, but a 3-minute CD, it means that you can use two Doom Winds into like one Ascendance, which is not really the greatest thing to do, I think deeply rooted elements, whenever it can proc, and sometimes it chain procs, it gives you like the kill potential outside of your CDs, which is quite insane. Static accumulation, I already talked about it in a previous video. Now it gives 20% chance to refund mushroom stacks spent on lightning bolt and chain lightning. Again, like I said in the tier set, you're going to use chain lightning more often now because of the proc, and does a lot of damage as well. And this plus the refund that you get on the tier set will give you a lot of maelstrom usage after using a chain lightning, which is quite nice. And you also have Thorm's invocation, again increasing your damage on chain lightning and lightning bolt. It will be very nice with the tier set. We are playing like a more physical build, so we do want like 2 out of 2 legacy of the frost witch, because we do want that 25% more damage on physical abilities, and elemental assault. Again, 20% increased damage on Stormstrike, very nice. Only 1 point in Witch Doctor's Ancestry. Why? Because it's only a 2% increase on like the chance to gain a stack, so it's all right. And also, I feel like 1 second shaven off is very good. Like 2 seconds is better, but obviously there are situations where you could, I would say, have a lot of feral spirits, but it doesn't really change. While, for example, having constant damage from your Legacy of the Frost Witch or Elemental Assault is more noticeable. Again, I like consistency, and I feel like the Legacy of the Frost Witch is super easy to get. Like, it's like consuming 10 stacks is like all the time, and like Stormstrike is your main ability. Like, you're going to have an increased damage on that, which I like. And I do not really play with Refreshing Waters or Focus Insight, but again, you can sacrifice a point somewhere to put it there, and I do sometimes do that if I feel like the matchup is very hard, or if I have to soft heal most of the time. I do put a point there. Also in role PvP, I do point a point there. I remove Stormblast and I go for that, because in role PvP, surviving is king, just in general. Okay, now let's talk about the PvP towns real quick, and then we're going to talk about the second build. Shamanism is now a fan favorite from me, at least. It's not really fan favorite, the Togre favorite of the PvP towns for Enhancement Shaman. It gives you a mini power infusion, and if you know PI how it works, it is actually insane on a lot of characters, and gives you also the possibility to be into a melee caster comp. And there are a lot of caster comps that have now an MS effect, so you can really play with them, and you basically play with a disc priest, for example, as a healer, and you have like PI and heroism, and you put those two on your caster. and you also benefit yourself, it will be insane. The amount of damage that you can have because of that is insane. I want to remind you guys, Devastation Evoker is a possibility for you guys to actually play. It plays a bit like Frost Decay, Devastation Evoker. You're going for the one shots. You have a PI on your Devastation Evoker. You put the Shamanism, like the Heroism, on your Devastation Evoker. He does a Fire Breath. People die, pretty much. So it's very strong. I like to play it because I like to increase my haste. It does cost a lot of mana, unfortunately, like 1000. It's pretty much like 10% if I'm not, no, it's not percent, like it's 20%, excuse me. I thought I had like more mana. But it's an instant value. If I put Shamanism now with Doom Wounds, because it is now off GCD, so you could put Doom Wounds with Shamanism or with Heroism without a problem on the micro, and it will be golden. I really like it. It's really fun to play like that. It's feeling more refreshing than any buffs that we got. I feel like a GCD removal of something is more important than just a flat buff. This is really strong. And you could also just say like, look, I'm not playing with this because it costs mana, and really it's on a 1 minute CD for 10-second usage. It's only 10% of the arena, right? I can understand that, and you can play Ride the Lightning, works as well. It will do a lot of damage passively, but I really stress that Shamanism is very important. So just play Shamanism if you want to test it out. It is insane. I want to remind you, Season Wins is stackable. I tested now, finally. I did a video before 10.1, and I said like, I hope it is stackable, but it could be also just a duration, and it is stackable. It is 45% damage taken reduced to the spell or the school spell that you actually like interrupted with your wind shear. So for example, if you interrupt Chaos Bolt, you're going to be reducing damage from Shadow, from Fire, and Chaos School. So you're pretty much like it's not possible to kill you versus a Destruction Warlock. You're going to 1v1 him pretty easily. His mate can kill you, but again, you have a teammate as well, so it will be alright. I think the damage reduction is insane. I think it's like a high value PvP talent if you're playing versus a caster. And I would even say that you could play Season Winds with Grounding Totem instead of like Shamanism, and you will be golden. You could also like try to remove Stormweaver. I really like Stormweaver though. It makes you actually play aggressive and not go for Maelstrom and heal yourself. I see a lot of people not play with Stormweaver though, so I can understand if you do not really like the system that actually provides the aggressive into a healing playstyle. You could also just play like passively and just spend your Maelstrom on your healing. It would be the same, but I feel like there is no like counter to it. I think it's very good to do an Elemental Blast and then a free healing surge on yourself, or Lightning Bolt is your own free healing surge on yourself or your teammate, to be honest. It's very strong. It reminds me on Chain Harvest from Shadowlands. It gives me like hope that they can actually understand Enhancement Shaman and future buffs to Enhancement Shaman. But I really like this PvP talent. I really like it, and it's like an instant pick. The same for Burrow. I think Burrow is very strong versus like Cleaves and like melees that actually want to kill you. There are warriors that play with Spear of Bastion. You can just burrow and walk away, and sometimes walking away is the best defensive that you can actually have as an Enhancement Shaman. So I always play Burrow most of the time versus Cleaves, versus like casters, and I feel like if I have a teammate that is also highly like killable, I would not play Burrow. I would play maybe Grounding Totem into Season Winds instead of Shamanism. But Shamanism is like pretty much like 80% of my games, and then I have like a few flex picks here and there. Ride the Lightning, I'm not really a fan anymore of it for some reason. It just is like the straight replacement for Stormweaver. Like Stormweaver replaced Ride the Lightning, and I never really looked back because Stormweaver is very interactive. It is very fun, and it just feels very good to press, like a healing surge, for example, after you have used your offensives. Again, Sky Fury Totem, I feel like it's very situational and greedy. I think in RBG you can pretty much put it and it would not be a problem, but I think in arenas you have like too little PvP tons to use. Like you have only 3 spots. I feel like Sky Fury Totem would be the 4th or the 5th spot, and even then I would maybe pick something else. Counterstrike Totem is very good versus noobs. Unfortunately, people now have weak auras and such, and Counterstrike Totem is pretty much destroyed on sight. Unleash Shield, not very good as an enhancement shaman. Unfortunately, we don't have water shield. If we had that, it would be an MS effect, which would be insane for an enhancement shaman, but we do not have that. A grounding totem, very strong versus casters, and also CC. Seasoned winds, very strong versus like casters that does cast, like for example destruction warlock. Elemental shaman right now do cast a bit. Shadow priest, very strong. Also, if you kick like shadow frost or shadow, it will be golden. Effectively, you only want to kick void torrents. I play shadow priest a bit now, so I do understand where the damage is coming from. Kick mind games, kick void torrents. Do not kick mind blast. It's useless. For example, static field totem. It's alright, and I feel like you don't really have the points to spend. And I feel like if you're playing with a warrior, he should be playing Spear of Bastion if you really want to have a data. Traveling storms, cool in BGs, but I feel like it's better for elemental shaman. So those are the PvP tons, and those are the PvP tons I use for this build. If I'm going for the Mastery King build, you will see a lot of things will change. We do not play with Wind Fury anymore because basically Mastery is King, right? And this should be changed as well. We take everything that does improve elemental damage. So elemental damage, what I'm actually saying with elemental damage is pretty much Lava Lash, which does fire damage, Ice Strike, which is doing frost damage, Hailstorm, which is improving our frost shock damage, so it will crit for a lot, very strong. Ascendance, also cool because it's a 3-minute CD, but we're still wanting to have static accumulation Storm's Invocation. We're spamming a lot less Stormstrike, and whenever I'm spamming Stormstrike, it is actually to regen some Maelstrom. That's the only reason. That's why we're taking Elemental Assault. The damage is not really that high for a Stormstrike anyways, with this build at least. So we take Ascendance to basically have Stormstrike usage and doing a lot of damage because of Storm's Invocation, because if you have 5 Maelstrom, it will do a Lightning Bolt or a Chain Lightning. It's very neat. There's also a way where you're not playing with Ascendance and you're going for Primordial Wave. It is nerfed in PvP, and since the Tierset will want you to go for Chain Lightnings, I feel like Primordial Wave is not really an option anymore. You could still go for it. Again, there's also a lot of variety into the builds, and you can actually just change depending on your playstyle. We're not even playing with Feral Lunge. I feel like there is too many points to spend. That's the only issue I see with like the Mastery King build. There is too many points to spend to be effective with your playstyle. You can also just forgo maybe Ice Strike, but then you are losing like 100% damage on your Frost Shock, which is effectively what you want with your Hailstorm. So I do not really know if it's a good thing. But in general, this build will do like very good damage. You will see that it is a bit like shoved into a corner where your consistent damage is a bit lacking, and you do miss a on-demand CD like Doomans that does a lot of damage. And it will be better with a lot of mastery and with the Tierset, but this build is the more risky build. The good thing is now Flame Shock is a bit harder to dispel because it does damage when exploding, and it does scale with your mastery. So if you have a lot of mastery and they dispel that, they're going to get critted for too many damage. So that's a good thing. Before 10.1, if they dispelled Flame Shock, it would do nothing. It was actually the play to do if you're playing versus a Lava Lash Enhancement Shaman. But right now, if they do like dispel it, they're going to regret it. It's only on 5-second CD as well. So in general, feels good spec, feels good build. My preference is still physical Stormstrike build, but again, variety. You could play with Primordial Wave, you can play with a bit more Stormstrike, you can play whatever and still be effectively strong. Class tree, again, also very flexible. You should basically pick your class tree talents based on the enemies. If you feel like Hex is too hard to cast in specific matches because they have a lot of anti-Hex like D curses, or they have a lot of ways to actually like interrupt you, I would not play Hex, I would play something else, for example. But again, everything is very flexible. I feel like the class tree is very good for us enhancement shamans and elemental shamans, because we have a lot of choices. And the spec tree is a bit good, but a bit like there are a few talents where you could just say, look, why are you not fusing those two talents, for example, like Ashen Catalyst and Lashing Flames? Fuse those two and you will have like one more point to spend. It would be better, I think. Or for example, Hot Hand could be just 1 point. So you have a few things that they should maybe change, but they didn't. But it is what it is. PvP talent, again, with this build, I would still play with Burrow, because I do like the anti-root effect, the anti-slow effect, but also just in general, the damage is quite nice. Burrow does a lot of damage with the Stormstrike build, for example, because it's physical. If you have your Feral Spirits, it is straight increased physical damage. So again, you're going to do some insane damage with your Burrow, but also just like liberating you from all kinds of situations. And Sky Fury Totem, again, I don't really see the utility. If you want to play with that, just do it, but I do not like it. So those are the two builds I like. Rotation wise, I made a few videos about it, but it's very hard to actually talk rotation with Enhancement Shaman, because it is like a very nervous spec, right? You see on the left, I have like the True VGCD add-on, so you can actually like follow a bit what I'm doing. So I'm going to press a few buttons. Here I have my Flame Tongue ready to go, and what I'm doing is actually just build my damage. I'm doing like a Frost Shock, a Lava Lash, trying to keep up my Flame Shock, Lava Lash, and now I have Lava Lash galore, so I try to spend my CDs. Lava Lash, Frost Shock, Lava Lash, Frost Shock, Stormstrike, Lightning Bolt, Flame Shock, Lava Lash, Elemental Blast, Frost Shock, Ice Strike, Flame Lash, Lava Lash, Lava Lash again. We still have Frost Shock. And if I want to burst, I do Ascendance, and I just spend my Stormstrike on demand. I have my Elemental Blast here, boom, and then Feral Spirits again, Ice Strike, Frost Shock, and it does a lot of damage, right? But it's a bit harder to actually like talk about rotation, because I'm just pressing what's lighting up on the bottom side of the screen. And whenever I spend my mouse drum, I just press Ice Strike into a Frost Shock. It does a lot of damage. And be sure to also just spend your Healing Surge whenever you can, because it is actually very important. And also Astral Guidance whenever you have to heal, Healing Stream Total whenever you have to heal, and just press your Lava Lash whenever you can, and you will be golden. And the damage is quite nice as well, right? So... and then you have your heroism whenever you want to do a lot of damage, and that's it. So you see Lava Lash, top damage, a lot of damage. Unfortunately, I never critted whenever I had to, but 90k crits with like 76k normals, very nice. Elemental Blast, 143k normal hits, again, very nice. Lightning Bolt critting for 172k. Flame Shock dot like critting for 16k, again no versatility, so the damage will be different for sure. Like it will be a little bit lower, but it's still going to be pretty nice. And if you're switching towards the better build in my opinion, which is a physical Stormstrike build, okay, Ascendance is on CD, but let's talk about comps, then I'm going to talk about rotation, about Stormstrike build. Comp wise, you want to basically 2v2 play with a DPS if you want to have fun. If you want to have like some sufferance, you can play with a healer, but the games are going to be very long. It's not going to be very cool, but you can very much win because of attrition. You have your own self heals, you have your heals from the healer, you have your healer that can do actually some good DPS because you have the ways to actually heal yourself. But you will lose a Mortal Wound effect. And Mortal Wounds, like Mortal Strike, so Mortal Wounds is from Mortal Strike, is a healing reduction, which is super important in twos. In twos, I can't stress enough, dampening is starting really quickly. I think it's 30% dampening from the get-go. And a Mortal Wound effect is going to be added up onto the dampening. So your healing will be reduced drastically. But Enhancement Shaman doesn't have that, so the enemy team will use less mana to actually keep up with the damage, while your healer will have to spend more mana to keep up with the meta specs for 2s. So that's why I'm actually like saying, look, maybe you can just skip the part of healer and go straight for double DPS. Play with a warrior, play with a retribution paladin, play with a shadow priest, play with something that does damage CC and can peel for themselves a bit, and you're going to be golden. But I'm going to stress 2v2, the meta is still with a healer, there is no going around it. Unfortunately, it is what it is. I think it's for the better, maybe, I don't know, because if it double DPS is the meta, you will see rogues and feral druids probably in every single comp, and they will win in the opener. But it's very hard, but you can find ways to actually win games reliably, but it will be just harder because some matchups are like straight losses. Like I'm imagining Demon Hunter with a resto druid, you're not going to win as a double DPS. If they're smart, they're going to do darkness and burst you and then blur, and a resto druid will just do tranquility, and it will be fine for them, right, for a few seconds, and those few seconds are enough to actually kill you. So that's in my opinion about 2v2. 3v3, you can play turbo. Again, it's with a warrior. It's the most meta spec comp for Enhancement Shaman, but I would recommend to also see Windwalker Enhancement Shaman, very strong, I think, in current state of the meta. You can also play Frost Decay Enhancement Shaman. It's not that great because you don't have a mono strike effect, but the damage is insane, and just a setup is enough to actually have a win. You can play with a caster now. In my opinion, Shadow Priest or Enhancement Shaman is actually very nice. And you can also play Destruction Warlock with an Enhancement Shaman. I think it's also very nice. You have peels and you have the CC and you have the damage, and often than not they are going to target the Destruction Warlock, and you with your healing and your damage and your peeling, it could be enough to actually like score kills. And he has a mortal wound effect now with Fisher, which is actually increased with even with soul rip, so you can do double dip into that, and the damage will be insane from both of you. Devastation Evoker also possible. If you're playing with a disc priest, you're going to do a heroism on him, and he's going to pretty much like decimate the team. You are like a support DPS at that point. You have multiple comps that you can play. Now the only problem I see is that the players in general are like catered and I would say routined into thinking that Enhancement Shaman can only play in a turbo. I think with current state of Enhancement Shaman having Flame Shock not dispellable, or it's dispellable, but you have a dispel protection, is actually massive for current state of the game. I think Shadow Priest, their issue is their CC is very dispellable. It's not like very punishable. While if you put a Flame Shock with a Vampiric Touch, it becomes a bit more like harder to just dispel it, because you're going to like get hurt pretty heavily. So that is pretty much my comp of like, I would say, thoughts. Soul Shuffle, I would say that surviving is number uno, but if you can burst, it is even better. Often not, games are like quick to end. If you can like quickly kill someone because they didn't really think about your damage, which happens quite often as an Enhancement Shaman, that's enough to actually like get wins. Like again, like in Soul Shuffle, I'm like 2100. I ended the season at 2k, but I stopped to play because the queues were very long. I really do not like to actually wait, but like my ratio is quite good, like 239 games won out of 457 rounds played. So I think it's quite nice, especially since I really sucked at Enhancement Shaman at the start of the season. So I think in general I'm going to play more 2s. Like I didn't play a lot of 2s and 3s. I'm going to play more 2s, more 3s, more RBGs. I'm going to show you guys Enhancement Shaman and Elemental Shaman gameplay. Now let's talk about the rotation from Stormstrike, and I think we can end the video on that with maybe a bit of macros here and there. So pretty much, how do you burst? You are going to stack up your Stormstrike, you're going to use your CC whenever you can, you use your Earth Elemental whenever you can as well, and then you go for Feral Spirits into Elemental Blast into a Doom Winds with Heroism, and you are pretty much bursting right now. And if you get like a big proc, it does a lot of damage, but it really depends on the procs. It really depends on the procs, and sometimes you're lucky and sometimes you're not. And I see I do not have my enchants. So I didn't have my Wind Fury. You see, my Wind Fury was not here, so it's actually very important to actually see your buff. But the damage is insane, right? The damage is really insane, like 150k on like lightning bolts. Sometimes I'm like wondering if I should play without elemental blast, but I feel like elemental blast is quite important for the self buffs that it gives. It gives your mastery, gives you haste, or gives you crit, and all those three stats are actually very insane. And if you want to like kite, you can just kite like this behind a pillar and then go back with like feral lunge into feral spirits, and then you can just go back into a burst rotation, and that's actually a very good thing, right? It's easy access. You can always weave in some healing, and then you can just burst back with your heroism. Heroism is really strong. Like, people are sleeping on it. The increase on like haste is really strong, and I can understand why people do not really want to play with heroism. But heroism is really like a mini bloodlust, man. It's like, not blood, it's a mini heroism from raids. Like, why is heroism so important in raids? Because it adds DPS, and the heroism from PvP talent is quite the same, really. And now if I'm doing like demons, you see the damage is really unstoppable. It's insane. And like, whatever you want to burst, again, sometimes you get like an ascendance proc, and that's sometimes enough to like finish someone, right? And feral spirits, and like, look at the damage I can do with burrow. It does some 113k, I think, if I saw it correctly. 113k normal hits. Imagine if it crits. Sometimes it does crit for a lot. And yeah, I mean, if you have questions about rotations, again, you have Fluffy GCD on the left, so you can see what I'm actually pressing. And yeah, I'm really enjoying Enhancement Shaman. I think Shaman specs in general, like Elemental Shaman, I made a guide about it, so if you want to check that out, please check that out. Enhancement Shaman, Elemental Shaman, all those specs are very good in 10.1. I'm actually impressed at how fun it is, and I'm very thankful for Blizzard to actually like put out some time and some thoughts into Enhancement Shaman and Elemental Shaman. I think there is a few things that you can actually change for Enhancement Shaman. I think removing a bit of like talent bloat to the side of Lavalash could be very nice for like build variety, but I mean, I can maybe understand why they do that, because maybe it's too strong and they want to gatekeep you a bit from the damage that you can actually do with Lavalash. But I think, yeah, I mean, it's really strong. The damage is insane. Lightning Bolt doing insane damage, and I still don't have the 4-set. Stormstrike doing insane damage. Wind Fury attack, insane damage. And I actually activated a bit later into the match as well, into the dummy test as well. Elemental Blast, whenever it crits, whenever it does normal hits, again, golden. Melee attacks, it's still 13% of your damage, right? You should really think about how much like DPS you're doing just because of that. And Sudden Rings is 72k. It will be even higher with the 4-set. So I'm looking forward to play the 4-set on real, like on live servers, and test out all those changes. Again, I think this is the end of the video. I will really quickly talk about the macros that I have. Here I have Doomwind's macro that should actually have also like heroism, because now it is like off GCD, and that's actually a very good thing. So you can actually do this, save, and now whenever you're popping Doomwind, so for example right now I get heroism and you don't see anything on CD like for 1 second, because there is no GCD on it. Very cool. So macros wise, I have like a few interesting macros, but I'll always discuss about it. I have like a help harm macro for cleanse spirit and greater purge. You can pause the video if you want to see those macros. I have a focus macro for wind shear, also very important since you're like a melee and your interrupt is ranged. Healers are always caught off guard because of that. Very nice. And at one point they're very scared, and they're going to cancel their costs like 5 times in a row. Kind of the same as getting interrupted, really. It's like a 2-second interrupt. Right now on live servers we have a healing surge. Target is 41 macro, very cool for 2s, and don't really it doesn't really make you think anymore. You just press that and you heal your ally. Very cool. And then a few macros for Elemental Shaman, but that's it. So yeah, I'm very happy about Enhancement Shaman. Again, I'm very available for you guys to ask questions in the comments on stream, because I will stream pretty much whenever the season is out. I'm going to try to stream in the evening now to actually do some 2s or 3s or RBGs with viewers. I would like to do that as well. I have a few guys coming up this week about the characters I'm playing. Hopefully you will get enough information to actually jumpstart into the seasons, but of course you will see some gameplay videos about me doing solo shuffles, 2s, 3s, or even RBGs, or even BGs sometimes if I want to chill, and you can then see the spec into action. Of course, it will always depends on the queue times and the availability for me to actually make the video. But whenever I can stream, I can show you guys the characters I'm playing and the builds that I'm playing, because what I'm showing you guys is actually the specs and the builds that I'm playing currently. So yeah, everything is fresh in my mind. So please do ask questions if you do have questions. In general, Enhancement Shaman, it's feeling very good. I think I put it in A tier in my prediction video, and I think it will stay A tier. If you want to play Enhancement Shaman, or you're thinking about playing Enhancement Shaman, I think now it is the time until we eventually get nerfed, like always. Hopefully they don't. It would be nice to have like a season where Enhancement Shaman is really A tier. I don't need being S tier, right? A tier is very fine, and it would be very cool to have me, or at least like Enhancement Shaman and the community for Enhancement Shaman, actually enjoying the spec in this current season. Anyways, thank you for watching. Have a good day. Be sure to stay safe. We will catch you very soon in the next video. Have a good day. Bye.